A little more whale watching for you guys. Hedge fund giant David Einhorn boosting his stake in Microsoft by a whopping 63%. Einhorn has been proven a very smart guy, but with Microsoft essentially been dead money for 5 years, we're really asking what exactly does he see in this company? Well, joining us now is Richard Williams, Microsoft analyst at Cross Research, and John Rettinger, president of Techno Buffalo. Richard, I was reading your notes and it said you're very bullish on Microsoft. There is so much to like. Where do I start? Well, make a crack at it.
The nice thing about Microsoft is that you've got very strong cash flows and a solid three-quarter streak of beating expectations. But we look forward into the mobile space, and because of what's happening with Google and Android, we think it really adds a lot of value to the Windows Phone 7 franchise as we go into year end. So essentially, they're going to try and pick up a lot of what Android is likely to lose because of these patent wars that have been going on.
And is Steve Ballmer smarter than people think? And would you poo-poo all the calls to get him replaced, Richard?
I think what we've seen over the last few years, in retrospect, really starts to paint a different picture than I think most investors are aware of. It looked as if Microsoft was mired and unable to move, but now when you look back and see how all of a sudden Microsoft went from being under the Department of Justice and EU antitrust commissions to suddenly now Google is under that lens with some Microsoft help behind the scenes. Same thing with search. I mean, Microsoft is the only company I'm aware of that was able to take a zero position in search, for example, that's a monopoly owned by Google, and grow it to 30%.
Yeah, John, I hear what Richard is saying, and we've been talking to Richard for years, and I respect his position, but at the same point, listen, you know, we can make the same case every year for Microsoft. Lots of cash, #1 leader in, Office program, #1 leader in Windows. Why hasn't the stock reacted for 5 years when it is fairly easy to, at least on paper, make a bull case for Microsoft?
So we're finally starting to see Microsoft use some of those capital reserves. Don't forget about that gigantic Skype acquisition just a few months. No matter what Microsoft does in the mobile space, that's still a fringe business.
Yeah, and Richard was just on Skype, but yet, as far as I know, he didn't pay to be on Skype, right? They paid $8 billion for a free product, John.
But what we're looking at is the integration.
Well, let John go ahead.
Well, we're looking at a potential integration with that Windows Phone 7 platform. They have a new release codenamed Deliciously Mango coming out very soon, which we're expecting to see Skype integration brought into that. So while you might not pay for the service is going to be in front of you. There's a potential for ad space there, and ad space for search. There's a tremendous potential revenue stream for Microsoft.
Well, Richard, I was one of those early Skype deal bashers, and it was a knee-jerk reaction. It didn't, for whatever reason. But as I'm driving to work, I've got Skype on my Android phone. I'm talking to my son in Hong Kong. It's all free, of course, at this point. I keep thinking to myself, is there some way Microsoft can somehow do something with Skype that would integrate it in a way Google has integrated Google Maps to be so perfect that it actually works? Because, by the way, when I'm using the Skype and I'm in the car and it's not quite that great. Is there something that people are missing here on the telecommunications front?
Absolutely, there is.
I would agree as well. I think that the fact that Facebook is free and they're generating multi-billion revenue numbers, and Google Search is free and they're producing tens of billions in revenues, I think it's just a function of monetizing it. And in the end, I look at Microsoft, Google as being search. It's a search war. And it's effectively Microsoft's trying to transition from its OS with incredible gross margins into a new world. And Google's trying to fight back with maintaining its great gross margin on the search side by going into China and India, we think, as part of this Motorola deal.
Okay, Richard and John, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.